Power rankings. All right, so we are approximately we're 5 weeks out tonight from the end of the season. So there are certain teams that are kind of going to end up probably being where they are unless they go on an incredible run. As in, some of the lower rated teams would need to go on an amazing run to move up or show substantial upward movement in the power rankings at this stage of the season, just based on where they are right now. And number 31 for the 6th week in a row. So I'll be able to take Ottawa's 31st place ranking out of there. They're 1-8-1 in their last 10, and they're comfortable in 31st, and that's Detroit. Yep, I went with the big old magnets tonight because sometimes the big old magnets are fun too. So means I have to watch how I spread them out too. So Detroit in 31st. I don't think there's any argument about that. In 30th, let's see, they were 31st, 29th, 28th, 29th, 30th. They're 30th this week as well. Ottawa. Yeah, they beat Vancouver, which I think said a lot about where Vancouver's at right now. More than it said anything about Ottawa. And then, of course, they beat Detroit, which is good because they could beat Detroit, which they could probably call Boston and Montreal and say, hey, so we know how to beat Detroit regularly. Do you guys want to talk to us? Or no, not really? All right. We already traded Pajot. Okay, bye. So, yeah, Ottawa, 30th. There you go. 29th. These guys have been 23rd, 26th, 27th, 24th, 24th, 28th. They dropped to 29th this week. San Jose had a really good night tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Over their last 10, they are 4-6. So, good game against the Penguins after losing 6 out of 9 before that. So all taken into account. I debated about whether to have them in 28th or 29th. I went with 29th because the team I have in 28th is 5-4-1 in their last 10. They've been 28th, 30th, 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 29th, 29th. So they're back up to 28th. It's party time. The Kings are out of the bottom row. This should be their logo. Just throwing that out there. This should be their full-time logo. I'd like to see it. But for the Kings, let the good times roll. They're 28th, and they're playing spoiler well. That's really all you can ask for at this time of year from these teams that are out of a playoff spot. It can be frustrating, too, because as a fan, you're like, all right, let's get the best possible draft lottery odds. Why are you winning? Why are you winning now? I went through that with Vancouver twice. So I understand if there are Kings fans kind of having that same opinion right now, like, why are they starting to win? If we don't get a good draft lottery position because of these wins at the end of the year that don't matter, although Gabe Vilardi coming in and playing well, that is good news. Number 27. These guys have been 22nd, 18th, 17th, then dropped to 21st, then dropped to 23rd. They're 4-6 in their last 10. And the question mark right now with Chicago is, how many goals will Kubalik score this year? Kubalik's become the big story out of Chicago, rightfully so. Also that Crawford has won the job and will keep the job as the starting goaltender for the foreseeable future. And we'll see what they do with him this summer, if they offer him a new contract, what they offer him, and for how long. A lot of questions about Chicago, none relating to the playoffs this year. Do they make it next year? We'll see. We'll see what they do this summer, and again, they don't. It doesn't feel like Chicago's that far away. They just don't win regularly enough to get into the conversation at this time of year. Number 26. These guys have been 27th, 25th, 20th, 21st. 25th. I remember that week they were 21st. Everybody was ready to come after me with pitchforks. Well, they're 26th right now. It's Montreal. And over their last 10, they're 3-5-2, and that includes the win tonight over Carolina in overtime. So for Montreal, it's been a rough time. And Lindgren gets a win tonight. I'd like to see him get more games down the stretch because you have to see whether or not he's a viable backup. And they're not making the playoffs, so you don't have to ride Price into the ground. Montreal, again, they're kind of in a holding pattern. How good are they? Are they good enough to be a playoff team next year? You know, there's guys who are going to come in and join the team. Romanov's coming in. What's going to happen then? It's going to be interesting. And, of course, when Suzuki comes in next year, does he take that next step? Do we see, like their young core come together and really make this work? Does Kotkaniemi have a huge bounce back year? A lot of questions around Montreal. Number 25. These guys were 29th. And then they were 27th, 26th, 28th, 27th, 27th. They're up to 25th this week. And it's Anaheim. Anaheim's 4-4-2 in their last 10. Respectable. And I think the players they added at the deadline, pretty smart moves. I do. I like what Anaheim did at the deadline. I think they're going to like Danton Heinen. I've said it in reviews. I'm saying it again here. I think they're going to like Danton Heinen in Anaheim. And I think they're going to like Sonny Milano as well. Milano needed a trade. Anaheim, a couple years from now, we could be talking about how this was the start of something. That with all the young core they already had, adding these extra pieces, it's the start of turning them back into a playoff team. Number 24. These guys have been 25th, 28th, 29th, 27th, 28th, 26th. This is the highest they've been in a long time. And that's New Jersey. New Jersey's 5-3-2 in their last 10. They did lose their last 2 games in extra time. They did better than Pittsburgh. Right? So this is where New Jersey's at. Blackwood won 6 games in a row coming into today where he loses, sure, but he still put up really, really good stats. And Schneider had a couple of decent games this week as well. So things are going pretty well for New Jersey. Again, a team that's out of it, and they're just trying to put some wins together now that we're in the end stretch of the season where the trade deadline's already passed. So I like what New Jersey's done so far. Number 23. These guys have been 26th, 24th, 25th, 26th, 26th, 24th. They move up 1 spot this week. And the funny thing is Buffalo, I know people don't like me using that logo. I know. But it was in this set, and I thought, no, I'll throw it up there this week. They move up 1 spot because, yes, they lost their last 2 games, but they've been playing well. Okposo's playing some of his best hockey. And honestly, they haven't played bad. The results just haven't quite been there. They're now 5-5 in their last 10. Last week when I did this, they were 6-3-1 in their last 10. So yeah, they've lost a couple in a row, and the playoff hopes have faded away. But rather than punish them, I still feel that they're playing ahead of these other teams, and one of the teams they were chasing just moved up a bunch this week. So they didn't get closer to that team on the power rankings board. They just moved up 1 spot. So, yeah, number 23. Number 22 this week, a team that's kind of fallen on hard times. They were 18th, 16th, moved up to 13th, dropped back to 15th, 16th, 19th. This week they're 22nd. And I'm telling you, Florida, it's really starting to look like Florida's finding a way to miss the playoffs. You know, Toronto looked really, really vulnerable 7 days ago. Quite vulnerable. If Florida had been able to go on any kind of a run, Toronto right now, even with the win tonight over Vancouver, would be chewing their nails and wondering if they're going to make it. But right now, Florida's 4-5-1 in their last 10. They're just not playing well enough to get that 3rd spot. And they're not playing well enough to chase down a wild card spot, which is very available because Columbus hasn't been playing very well either. So for Florida, I have them in 22nd, and I'm starting to lose hope in them actually making the playoffs this year, which is too bad because I think this is a pretty good team they've got put together. And if they did somehow cobble together a decent record and make the playoffs, that's a team that could get an upset in the first round. With Bobrovsky in net, with the offense they can throw out there. The defense is suspect in a playoff series, but I think they could make it close, and I think they could score an upset in round 1. Number 21. These guys have fallen off the map. They were 11th, 6th, 7th, 6th, 6th. Last week they dropped to 13th. So in 2 weeks, they've gone from number 6 to number 21. That's Columbus. This is the Seth Jones effect. 2 weeks later, they go from 6th to 21st. 1-4-5 in their last 10. Tomorrow they're at home against Vancouver. That's a winnable game because Vancouver's coming in tired and probably a little bit upset with themselves over how they've played their last couple of games. And they're starting all of their games slow, which is frustrating to Canuck fans. And so maybe Columbus can jump on them early and get themselves a victory. But Columbus really hasn't been playing well for a while. And so I've had to bump them down because before I was able to say, well, they're losing in overtime. They're close. It looks like they're close. They're not close right now. This has just gotten worse as the time has moved forward, as time is known to do. And even though right now they're above the playoff line in the East, to me that's a mirage. I don't see them being able to keep that playoff spot because Carolina could very well turn it around. But the Rangers are the team that I'm looking at and saying the Rangers should be able to knock Columbus out of that spot. Number 20. These guys have been, let's see, 10th, 14th, 19th, 23rd, 22nd. Last week they were 21st. So they've gone 22, 21, and now they're 20, and that's Arizona. Arizona, under the playoff line, right here. They've played more games than the teams that they're chasing. That makes it difficult, right? So making it difficult doesn't mean that it's impossible, but it's difficult. The math gets tricky for them, but they need to win a lot. So the win at home tonight against Buffalo, that's big, but all it does for me is bump them past Columbus. Right now they're 5-4-1 in their last 10. I don't know if winning at that rate gets them that playoff spot. They're going to need Calgary or Nashville to get really cold, or Vancouver to stay kind of where they've been. And Vancouver does take a drop this week for people wondering. Number 19, these guys were 20th, 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, 22nd. They move up 3 spots this week. It's been a good month for Minnesota. It has. And Minnesota's making that move up. And right now they do sit below the playoff line. They've got one game in hand, I believe, on Winnipeg, and they've got games in hand, multiple, on Arizona. So it's kind of in their own hands, and seeing Nashville lose tonight in regulation had to make them feel good, because Nashville's that team that they're going to be targeting, and they could very well be targeting Calgary as well. Calgary lost in regulation against Tampa, so this is a good time for Minnesota, a team that was left dead and buried shortly before the deadline. They were like, why aren't they selling? Why would Guerin fire the coach? Now we understand. Bill Guerin had faith in these guys the whole time, and maybe he's benefiting from it. And not only that, but Galchenyuk has put up 4 points in 8 games as a member of the Minnesota Wild. He's scoring at a not the rate that would have been expected when he was drafted, but you know what? It's a better rate than he's been most of the year. Number 18. That's been a rough patch for these guys. They were 8th, dropped to 17th, 18th, 16th, 15th. Last week they were 17th. This week they're 18th. And that's the Islanders. The biggest thing with the Islanders, adding Jean-Gabriel Pageau was nice. It's good. He's a good heart and soul player. Today against Boston, they showed they still can't score. They don't generate enough shots. That desperation you're looking for. I kept thinking this too in the Boston game. Where's that desperation? This is a team that now they're not that far above the playoff line. That desperation has to kick in, right? And it really hasn't. So, Pageau helps. We'll see if that turns things around, and maybe Boston just had a great game today. But the Islanders I do have concerns about. Number 17. And for the Islanders, they're 3-5-2 in their last 10. Minnesota's 6-3-1 in their last 10. I apologize if I'm not giving out all the last 10 records for these teams. Number 17. These guys are 5-4-1 in their last 10. They were 12th, dropped to 13th, dropped to 15th. Were 18th for 3 straight weeks. They were 18th. Now they move up to 17th, even though they lost their last couple of games, and that's Calgary. For the Flames, really, in all honesty, tomorrow they go into Florida. They've got to win that game. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. They have to win that game. They have to make sure that this road trip, they come out on a feel-good note at the end of it, and that their confidence is high, because you're going to need that. This division may be getting away from everybody because Vegas is running away with it. But second place is still there. And whoever gets second, importantly, avoids Vegas or St. Louis in the first round. So it's important to finish second or third in the Pacific, because if you finish in a wild card spot and you get St. Louis or Vegas, even though we saw the first place teams lose last year in the first round, I'm not going to bet against St. Louis or Vegas in the first round this year, in all likelihood. We don't know the matchups yet. But I don't see myself betting against them. So for the Flames, the smart thing would be come out and play your best hockey from here and make sure you can knock either Vancouver or Edmonton down. I'm thinking Vancouver into a wild card spot. Number 16. This is the lowest these guys have been in a while. They were 9th, 10th, 11th. Moved back up to 8th. Dropped to 10th for 2 weeks in a row. Now they're down to 16th. And I'm starting to think that Carolina, who are below that playoff line, they might just stay there. The Islanders are threatening to drop out, but Carolina's 4-4-2 in their last 10. And it's been kind of a mixed bag since the trade deadline. Now, I am well aware that there are frequent comments from one subscriber to this channel completely and totally panicked about the trade deadline. I don't think the trade deadline's the reason these guys are losing right now, because they were losing before the trade deadline. And I really thought coming out of the David Ayres story that Carolina would be better. I was wrong. That is still over the last 8 days, that's the best game they've played, and it was because they knew the goaltender in the net was overwhelmed, and they should feel that way about both Nedeljkovic and Forsberg, because while both of them are professional hockey league goaltenders, play that same defense, play that same desperate defense in front of them that you played in front of him, and you might have better results. Right now, it looks like Carolina may find themselves on the wrong side of the playoff line at the end of the year. Now, I have them at 16th, so I still have them ahead of teams that may end up in a playoff spot. I have them ahead of the Islanders, but, I'm starting to wonder if they're going to make it, which is why they dropped 6 spots this week. Number 15. These guys have dropped. They were 16th, 9th, 5th, dropped to 12th for 2 straight weeks. Last week, they went up to 11, and there were a lot of people mad at me last week that they went up to 11 who thought they should have been higher. And now I've got them at 15th. So the Vancouver Canucks, without Markstrom, have dropped out of the second row. They're down in the third row. And honestly, coming into today, I had them in the second row. And after what happened tonight, I said, you know what? I can't. I can't have Vancouver in the second row. They're not playing well enough. And they've been skating by with Markstrom playing really well. A division that nobody was taking control of. A division that we all talked about, this division is really, really close. Yeah, nobody was taking control of it. Now Vegas is. Vancouver's fallen off. Edmonton looks like they're interested in staying in that race. Vancouver, there's just something off. And I know Markstrom being out has not helped the situation at all. Something's off. When Toffoli comes in, I expect him to be good. I don't expect him to be your best player, which is fine. But when I see other guys becoming passengers who were leaders before it, there's some problems here. Brock Besser being hurt is part of it as well, but yeah, there's something going on with Vancouver. Number 14, this is the lowest these guys have been in a long time. They were number 1, number 2, number 3, back up to number 2, and last week they were number 5. These guys have been skating along, no problems at all, and now Pittsburgh's number 14. They dropped 9 spots. They are 12 spots below where they were 2 weeks ago. You don't go into California and get swept. You don't. So for Philadelphia fans, if you think way back to the power rankings when Philadelphia came out of California with a pretty poor record, I hit them pretty hard. I've done the same to Pittsburgh, show fairness, and also because Pittsburgh's not playing very well right now. You can credit San Jose with a 5-0 win. You can credit the Kings with beating them. You can credit the Ducks, but in reality, the Penguins just aren't playing like the Penguins, and again, much like with Toffoli in Vancouver, Zucker looks like the best forward for Pittsburgh in almost every game, which is a problem when you've got Malkin, you've got Crosby. They should be your best forwards, and they really kind of haven't been over this huge losing streak for Pittsburgh, which just seems to keep getting worse. So it has snowballed now to the point where they are now third in the division. They don't have any games in hand on Philadelphia. They don't look like a threat to chase down Washington all of a sudden, even though they were first last week. And not only that, but you can make an argument that the Rangers could track down the Penguins by season's end if Pittsburgh doesn't warm things up. The Rangers playing incredible hockey. You'll notice the Rangers are not on the board yet. And last week they were number 15. So they've moved up to at least 13. Well, they're higher than 13. Number 13. And Pittsburgh over their last 10 games are 3-6-1. Vancouver's 4-5-1. So there's the last 10 games again. Number 13 is a team that's actually 4-5-1 in their last 10, but I think they're playing well. And tonight was an instance where they lose the game, but I think they played really well. And as long as they don't get discouraged by that result, I still think some good things are going to come their way. They were 15th, they were 21st, 22nd, 20th, 19th, 16th. This week they're 13th, in part because teams played really, really poorly this week. So Winnipeg moves up to 13 because Pittsburgh fell off the map. Carolina's playing poorly. Vancouver's playing poorly. And I really think Winnipeg's outplaying those teams. I remember, was it 2 years ago when I started doing power rankings every week and I had Winnipeg high up. And I had people saying, what is Winnipeg paying Shannon so that they'll be high up in his rankings? 2 years later, I don't hear a lot of that because Winnipeg hasn't really been one of the better teams. I think they're playing well. I do. I like what they're doing, and if they get into the playoffs, I think they're more dangerous as an underdog. I think if they end up knocking out, whether it's Calgary or Vancouver, I don't think they knock out Nashville. I think Nashville's going to make the playoffs. But if they knock out a Calgary or Vancouver, if they end up in a wild card spot against Vegas, I don't like their chance against Vegas, but against St. Louis, with a chance for revenge from last year, that could be one team that I could see matched up with St. Louis where I would say, you know what? I could see St. Louis suffering a first round upset. I could see Winnipeg potentially carrying that off. Now, it would depend on who's hurt and all that. And right now, everybody's hurt. And that's part of the thing, too. They played really, really well in Edmonton. They didn't end up winning it, but that was without Laine. That's without Morrissey. And that's on top of all the other injuries. I think they had 9 regulars out of the lineup. It's a lot. So I think Winnipeg's probably going to end up on the right side of that playoff line. Number 12. These guys have been all over the map. They were number 4. They dropped to number 12, moved back up to 9. Dropped to 14, stayed at 14, and then last week they dropped to 20. Now their fan base said, drop us to 31. And I said, no, not going to go crazy with this. And this week they move up to 12. They had a very good week. Toronto had a very good week. And there were some other teams that had a really bad week. So I said, you know what? They belong ahead of Pittsburgh right now. They absolutely do. They belong ahead of Pittsburgh. They belong ahead of Vancouver. They beat Vancouver. They belong ahead of the Islanders. The Islanders can't score right now. Carolina, they belong ahead of Carolina, even though Carolina beat them with their own goaltender, the Zamboni driver, 7 days ago. Toronto has reacted very, very well to that. And right now they're playing some of the best hockey they've played all year. So I like them at 12, and honestly, I think they're starting to nail down that third spot. And I think they're probably very happy, they just won't admit it, that it looks like they would play Tampa in the first round. I would think that would make them very happy. Their fan base and the players. And for me, as somebody who runs a channel that talks about hockey, I would love not to see Boston and Toronto again. Please. So, that being said, Toronto, I have at 12th this week. They continue the great week, bad week, great week, bad week run that they've been on. Number 11. These guys move up in part because other teams are playing badly. So, Toronto's 6-4 in their last 10. These guys are 3-6-1. But they didn't have a bad week. They're just coming off of a couple of bad weeks before this one. So they were 5th, 3rd, 4th, 8th. Last week they were 14th. This week they move up to 11th. And that's the Capitals. Sorry, Adam, I am using the eagle that you don't like, but these are the things that happen. So the Capitals, they had a decent week. They did lose 3-0 against the Jets, which is part of the reason why the Jets are sitting where they are. Very good game for the Jets. And that was after the Capitals had beaten the Jets in the prior game in a shootout. So I think the Capitals are still very likely to be the first place team. I say very likely because Philadelphia kind of looks like a team of destiny when it comes to the regular season right now. Excellent run they've been on. Alain Vigneault might be putting his name into the Jack Adams conversation late in the race here, which can be very important when it comes to the Jack Adams. So yeah, the Capitals I have at 11th. Which is still much lower than I think anywhere else you're going to find on the internet, where a lot of power rankings just look at the standings and they go, all right, well, this team's first in the East, this team's first in their division, so they're second in the power rankings. That's how it looks to me, anyways, because they'll even say had a really bad week, and then they didn't move, and I'm like, well, if they had a really bad week, doesn't that mean that they're not playing well right now? So they should probably drop a bit. Anyways, number 10. Moving along, these guys were 21st, 23rd, 21st, 19th, 17th. Last week they moved up to 12th, and this week they move up to 10. Nashville lost a very close game tonight. It was only close because they scored with 2 seconds left, but I'm still going to say a very close game against Colorado, who are playing very, very well. And I like Nashville. I like their chances. They're above the playoff line now. They won enough games in hand that they're now in the playoff picture. I don't see them falling out of it. Much like Winnipeg, I think it suits Nashville to be the underdog. I think when they're the favorite, they're more likely to fumble it. Nashville right now, to me, is playing pretty darn well. We'll see if they continue that this coming week. But again, there are so many teams right now in the NHL that there's a flaw. That you look over their last 10. Like for Nashville right now, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. Right? But there are a lot of teams that we view as contenders, and they're not playing very well right now. So it does open the door on this board for some teams to be in the top 10 that you might not otherwise expect to be in there. This next team, they're 5-3-2 in their last 10. They were, let's see, where are they on here? 17th, 8th, 8th, 10th, 9th, 9th. And this week, they're 9th for the third week in a row. It's Edmonton. Edmonton, and I know I've been told that I have them too high on the board. They don't lose very often. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10. They're still second in their division. I know they wouldn't be second in the Metro. They're not in the Metro. And not only that, but they've got a good record. And with Draisaitl and McDavid, they're good enough to get these guys in the playoffs. Their goaltending's been getting better. Mike Smith is playing really, really well. I kind of like what Edmonton's doing right now. And I think that Edmonton should be able to win at least the first round in the playoffs. If it's a second round matchup between Edmonton and Vegas, sign me up. That could be fantastic. Connor McDavid against the Vegas Golden Knights. That could be a fantastic series. And I do. I like what Edmonton's doing right now. We'll see when they've got a healthy lineup how things look. Like once Yamamoto's back in there, and I know it's going to be weeks away, but once we see Clefbaum and Green, I would think going into the playoffs they should have both Clefbaum and Green, and things could look pretty rosy for them going in. Number 8. There's a fan base out there going, wait, we're still not on the board. He lost us. He dropped us. He's going to be so embarrassed when he realizes he dropped our logo on the floor. They were 24th, 22nd, 24th, 25th, 20th, and last week they were 15th. And I've certainly heard from fans of this team for a while that I've been underrating them. Nope. But when they go on a long winning streak, they move up. Number 8 this week is the Rangers. Now, the most recent game for the Rangers was a thrashing they took, not from the Thrashers, ironically, but from the Flyers. I didn't penalize them for that because, again, looking at their last 10 games, they're 8-2. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. They've won 8 out of 10. So I don't look at that loss against Philly and say, that's it. They're not for real. I look at that and I go, wow, Philly's really good. Philly's fantastic at home. We'll see what happens when the venue changes and we're in New York tomorrow. The Rangers, I'm quite enthused, and I know they're still below the playoff line, but they've got games in hand on Columbus, and I think they can track down the Islanders. I think that with the way the Penguins have been playing the last couple of weeks, the Rangers can track them down. Look, the Penguins have, in their last 10 games, 7 points. In their last 10 games, the Rangers have 16. So they've gained 9 points on the Penguins in their last 10 games. They can catch the Penguins if they keep this up. Now, of course, with Shesterkin out, that's going to have people kind of antsy. I don't think he's going to be out that long. Got a funny feeling he won't be out that long. And while he's out, I think Georgiev can manage things just fine. I have faith in Georgiev. So I didn't drop them when I heard about the Shesterkin injury. I'm not dropping them now. And I'm not nervous about the New York Rangers. They're playing some of the best hockey in the league right now. Even said on the phone yesterday, I'm really anxious and excited to watch Rangers games now. I never thought I would see the day that happened. I'm being completely honest. I never thought I would see the day. I said, man, I can't wait to watch the Rangers. I never thought that would happen, and I do. With all the hockey I watch, all 31 teams, I'm trying to watch as much hockey as I can. Sometimes there's a game that starts, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a chore. I don't feel that way with Rangers games. I don't anymore. Number 7. These guys have been 14th, 15th, 16th, moved up to 13th, moved up to 5th, dropped to 8th last week, and this week they're back up to 7th. And that's the Dallas Stars. So they're back in the top row. They move up one spot. I did like the fight they showed tonight against St. Louis. I thought that was nice that they came back and they made it a 1-goal game. For Dallas, it's been a really good season. And I'm kind of anxious to see what happens with them in the playoffs. Because right now it looks like Colorado and Dallas in round 1. It could be St. Louis. It could be St. Louis and Dallas in round 1. If it's St. Louis and Dallas in round 1, St. Louis will beat Dallas. But it'll still be a really fun series if that happens. And if it's Colorado and Dallas, I kind of like Dallas's odds because I kind of like Dallas's defense more. But again, we'll see. And just the fact that Dallas is in this position where they're kind of clearly one of the top 3 teams, it's kind of a nice, refreshing change. from where things were just a couple years ago. Number 6, boy, did these guys have a bad week. They went from 3rd to 4th to first. Last week they were 3rd, and this week I know they ended it on a winning note. I still have Tampa at 6th. The 5-2 loss against Chicago is alarming. Alarming to have a 2-goal lead and blow it. And then today against Calgary, they have a lead and they kind of blow it. There's something going on with Tampa where they're starting to look kind of shaky again. They in all likelihood still finish 2nd in that division. But because they've been shaky this week and Boston had a couple of victories, Boston's kind of home and cold with the division and perhaps the President's Trophy, which might be Tampa Bay's plan all along. The funny thing was I actually heard that today, which was, well, maybe Tampa let up because they don't want the first in the division of the President's Trophy. And I thought, that's not a thing. Players don't sit in the locker room and go, all right, guys, we're doing too well. We have to go out there and lose tonight. That's not a thing. Do teams let up a bit? Sometimes. Sometimes that team in first place will let up and get lazy. But a team chasing first place doesn't go, oh, we don't want to get that close to first. You still want home ice advantage in Game 7. You want that. So Tampa Bay, it's been a rough last couple of weeks. They played a good game against Calgary. We'll see if that means they're going to move back up in coming weeks. Number 5, these guys have been pretty consistent. They had a couple of bad weeks and then they came back. They were number 2, number 6, 7. Dropped to 13th 2 weeks ago. Last week they were back up to 7th. And this week they move up 2 spots to 5th, and that's the St. Louis Blues. Nice winning streak for St. Louis. They're back. Their defense is back. Now they had that 6-5 victory against Chicago, which was Chicago's scoring a lot of goals right now. Just throwing that out there. Chicago's scoring a lot of goals right now. Despite being where they are on the power rankings, they're scoring a lot of goals right now. But St. Louis, they weathered that, and they went out there tonight and they managed to get themselves the 2 points when they needed them against Dallas to make sure they're a point further clear of Dallas and they stay as far ahead of Colorado as possible, which right now is, I believe, a 3-point cushion. And they are 7-2-1 in their last 10. Tampa's 6-4 in their last 10. Dallas is 6-2-2 in their last 10. So that gives you an impression of where these teams are at. The 6-4 for Tampa is stunning after their 11 games in a row that they won. It does make sense, though, that you're going to have a bit of a letdown after those 11 wins in a row. Now, St. Louis, could they have a letdown in the coming week? Sure. I don't anticipate that they will, though. I think they want first in the West. I think they can sense it, that it's right there for them. They're just playing really well. Love Colton Parayko right now. Mentioned in the review tonight, I'll mention it here as well. Love Colton Parayko. That guy's fantastic. If we had a Rod Langway award in the NHL for best defensive defenseman, Parayko's got to be top 3 most years. He's absolutely fantastic. Number 4, these guys were 19th, 14th, 11th, 7th. Last week they were number 4. This week they're number 4 as well, and that's Philadelphia. So Philadelphia continues to win. They continue this amazing run that they've been on. And again, tomorrow I see a big test between them and the Rangers. Both top 8 teams. And the Philadelphia Flyers are also 8-2 in their last 10. So Philadelphia and the Rangers have won 16 of their last 20 combined games. That means we're going to have a fun game tomorrow morning. It's going to be worth getting up early to watch that. Sometimes those early games aren't worth getting up early to watch. Especially early in the season when they're still feeling each other out and it's like, oh, it's the second period before anything happens. Not so. I don't anticipate that happening tomorrow morning between these guys. And Philadelphia is looking absolutely fantastic. They do look like the best team in their division. You'll notice that of the Metro teams, they are the highest rated on the power rankings, and rightfully so. Number 3, they were 6th, 5th, 3rd, 2nd. They were 3rd 2 weeks ago. Last week they were 1st. And then this week happened. Now I have Boston in 3rd. They were lower than that. They were. They're in 3rd because they did beat Dallas. And then they got a nice victory today over the Islanders, which tells me that that brutal defeat they suffered against Vancouver a week ago, that was not indicative of their play. And then they had that horrible game against Calgary as well. So they did drop, but they didn't drop dramatically. And for Vancouver, this happens. You have that big game against a team that you hate, and then you have a letdown after. And maybe that's part of what's happened. Maybe that's part of the reason why. The Vancouver Canucks had a bit of a rough week. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. But for Boston, their week wasn't great. That's why they're not in first anymore. Number 2, it's been quite a climb. They were 7th, then they were 11th, they were 12th, they moved up to 9th. They dropped to 11th that week. There were some fans that weren't happy about dropping, even though I explained it. And then last week they moved up to 6th. This week they're 2nd. And you know what? So while Boston is 7-3 in their last 10, these guys are 8-1-1 in their last 10. And that's Vegas. So yeah, that's the secondary logo. I thought I was going to use the secondary logo this week for Vegas. This is the highest they've been on the power rankings in a long time. I believe they've been 2nd at least once this year. But it's a huge jump for them, and it's an 8-game winning streak will do that for you. You'll notice there are long winning streaks at the top of the board, and a team that recently had a long winning streak. That's kind of how this is supposed to work, though, ideally. So for Vegas, they definitely look to me right now like they're playing the best hockey of the season. They have had an absolutely incredible run, and I think they're peaking at the right time. There was articles I saw last week about how a team plays the last couple of months. It says a lot about how they're going to play in the playoffs. If that's the case, and if Vegas can keep up what they're doing right now, they're going to have a nice deep playoff run this year, which will aggravate a lot of people. I'm being honest. If Vegas ends up going, even if they just go to round 3 and lose, there are going to be a lot of people who are really angry that the Vegas Golden Knights in their first 3 years have escaped round 2 twice, made it to the finals once, made it to the conference finals the other time in 3 years. That's just making it to the Final Four. They win the Stanley Cup. Yeah, but I'm in for it. I'm in for it. I'm good. It's fine. If that happens, we'll deal with it. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, if that should happen. And right now, according to the odds makers, they're one of the odds-on favorites to win the Stanley Cup. So who's number 1? Well, people have figured it out. But I make sure I talk about team number 2. I don't want to just talk about team number 1. So talk about team number 2, Vegas. Excellent showing. Team number 1. Well, they had a rough patch. They were 13th, moved up to 7th, dropped to 10th, moved up to 5th, 4th. Last week they were number 2. And here's the thing. People want to tell me, and I know, you're like, well, Colorado's not playing that well. But they're winning. Right now, they are 7-2-1 in their last 10. When I did this last week, they were 7-2-1 in their last 10. They're playing well. They're winning games. They're winning a lot. And back-to-back games, no problem. Grubauer gets hurt. That's fine. Francouz will just put up better numbers than Grubauer. And that's what he's done. So, for Colorado, this has been just, honestly, a really, really solid run. And they're not letting St. Louis get out of their sight. So while St. Louis has had this really, really good run to get back into the top row, Colorado's been playing just as well, if not better. And I'm really excited to see what Colorado does in the playoffs. Keep in mind, before the season started, I said I liked Washington winning the Cup over Colorado in the finals. I haven't changed that prediction because odds are I'd be changing that prediction regularly, and that doesn't mean anything. So when the playoffs roll around, I will make a final prediction of who I think is going to win, and don't bet on that team because I'm usually wrong. Every year, I'm pretty sure I've been wrong. Yeah, I have been. And so when you have a league with as much parity as we have right now, that's easy enough to do. But I like Colorado's chances. I really like Francouz. I really like Makar. McKinnon's fantastic. They've got the depth. Everything's there. It's just a matter of making sure that they peak at the right time. So there you go. Power rankings are done. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know there's going to be a lot of people who disagree. That's how that works. But do hit the like and subscribe buttons if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. And don't forget to hit like, because they always tell me make sure they're liking videos, and the feedback I get from YouTube is about you get more likes on this and likes on that. They seem to enjoy the like button being pressed. So for all the algorithms and the nectars and whatever else of the internet, that kind of stuff. Thank you for watching, for all your support. I know this is a bit more wordy than my normal power rankings, but I felt the need to describe and explain, because there's a lot to explain this week. I'm like Homer on the float, where he's all drunk and he's got a lot of stuff to explain about it, and then he crashes. I kind of feel like, just without the crashing, that's kind of how this feels. Thanks again for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.